morning, good afternoon, whenever you are watching this. Welcome to this week's Thursday Assembly, Collective Worship, whatever you want to call it. I hope you have all had a fantastic half term and had a bit of a chance to stop that schoolwork and have a bit of fun outside in the wonderful weather. We did actually take an early morning trip to the beach to avoid any people, and all the boys also camped in the garden. I decided to stay inside in my nice comfy bed, but the boys camped in the garden. So I hope you've had a lovely half term and some great things. So today's assembly is going to be a story that I'm sure that you are all familiar with. It's one that I know that we have done in assembly at school before. But before we do that, we're going to have a little quiz. So I asked some of the teachers which they think is their most hated household chore, the job that they hate doing the most. So I gave them some options. These were the options: putting out the rubbish, cleaning the toilet, ironing, cleaning windows, washing up or emptying the dishwasher, or something else. So have a little think about those. Let me read those to you again. Do you think teachers thought that putting out the rubbish was their most hated household chore? Cleaning the toilet, ironing, cleaning the windows, washing up or emptying the dishwasher? Or did they say something else? I wonder what you think. So Mrs Wicks first. Which one did she choose? Have a little think. I'll give you a few seconds. That's it. Mrs Wicks hates mopping the floor. Okay, Madame Dale. What of those yucky household chores do you think Madame Dale hates to do? Ooh, defrosting the freezer. She chose one of her own. Okay, what about Mrs Nichols? Oh, cleaning the oven. That is a really yucky job. One I try to avoid doing. Mrs Verdon next. Which job does she hate doing the most? Changing the bed linen. Has anyone else noticed that cow behind Mrs Verdon? Looks like he's giving her a kiss. It's Mr Hanley next. Which chore does he hate the most? Oh, ironing. I actually quite like ironing. I must offer to do Mr Hanley's ironing maybe. Okay, 2 more to go. Mrs Stevens next. I'm sure she loves all the household chores. Let's see. Oh, it's the dusting for Mrs Stevens. Okay, last but not least, Mrs Barbosa. Which household job does she hate the most? Yeah, I think I agree with this one, Mrs Barbosa. Emptying the bins. Yucky job. Right, how many did you get right? Did you guess Mr Hanley's being he hates the ironing? I wonder if you did. Wonder what your most hated household chore is, or your parents' most hated household chore, or maybe just all of them. Today we're going to be looking at the words that Jesus said in the Beatitudes, well, some of the words that Jesus said in the Beatitudes, and some of those are, it says, those who are humble are happy, the earth will belong to them. Now in this, Jesus was explaining another really important value in God's kingdom, and one that is important to our school too. So it's the value of humility. Basically it means, quite simply, putting others before yourself. We're going to hear a story now, and a story about something that Jesus did, and it's remembered by Christians all over the world. I'm sure you'll remember the story too when you hear it. Jesus and his disciples had finally arrived in Jerusalem for the Passover celebrations. They were all gathered together in a room as the meal was being served. Whilst they were waiting, Jesus got up from the table, took off his heavy outer clothing and wrapped a towel around his waist. He poured water into a basin and knelt down on the floor. Then he began to wash the feet of his disciples, drying them with the towel that was around his waist. The disciples were astonished. Later on, when he had put on his outer clothing again and was sitting once more at the table with them, he asked, "Do you understand what I was doing for you when I washed your feet earlier?" No one answered. "I have set you an example of how I want you to treat each other. I, whom you call Master and Teacher, have washed your feet, and I want you to do the same for each other. No one is too grand or important to serve another. God will bless you if you act in this way." Now, we've already talked about those jobs that we don't like doing, those yucky jobs. Mine was picking up the dog poo from the garden. That is the most disgusting job ever. Did anyone spot in the story the yucky job that Jesus did? Wonder if anyone can think what it was. That's right, you've guessed it. Washing the disciples' feet. In Jesus' day, washing feet was a yucky job. People wore sandals and they walked on roads that were dirty and it was hot, and feet would have been filthy and possibly, or probably, quite stinky. Now, it was customary when you went into someone's houses that you would wash your feet, but usually a servant or a lower person would wash the feet of the guests who came into the house. Certainly not an important person like Jesus. Washing feet was the worst job in the household. So when Jesus washed his disciples' feet, he was demonstrating that he loved them so much that he was going to get down on the floor and clean their dusty, smelly feet to serve them. At the end of the story, Jesus told his disciples to go and do the same. Now, it might not have actually meant physically going and washing disgusting, minging, smelly feet, but what he meant was to go out and serve others, to think of others before yourselves and think what you could do to serve them. Jesus wants us to have a humble heart, a servant heart. And just as we finish our assembly, I want us to think a little bit about how we might do that this week. So that's your challenge this week. How can you show a humble heart like Jesus was showing us in this story? With a prayer, and as usual, if you agree with what I'm saying in the prayer, I'd love you to join in with an amen at the end. Dear God, thank you for this story that shows how Jesus came to serve. Help us to learn how to serve each other, to put the needs of other people first, to show humility, to be more like Jesus. Amen. That's it for this week. I hope you have enjoyed. Remember, our value this week has been humility, showing humility to others. I hope you have a fantastic week, whether you're at school, whether you are at home, and I will see you next Thursday, same place, same time. See you then. Bye.